That's good.
All right, y'all are good to go whenever.
I would love to have the Joe Rogan, right? Just the Joe Rogan show. Just something like down there.
He's been using that for a really long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he started in his apartment.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And now he has more, I guess you call listeners, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
He has more listeners in a year, or quadruple the listeners in a year than CNN has viewers.
It's kind of cool.
That's pretty rad. Yeah. And they spend billions, right, in order to get their thing done.
Yeah.
And he's got a little bitty
He's
place.
getting paid.
He's getting paid to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Our world has changed.
Yeah.
Which is good, man. I'm done with all those people anyway.
Yeah.
I don't need them.
I stay out of the news.
I do. I don't need them. It's all. I don't know what to believe anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. So we're good to go?
Yep, whenever we are.
All right. Ready? Take one. All right. So here we are with Chris Thompson. Cadre Chris. CT. Claim to fame. He was the first Green Beret to graduate Top Gun.
Far from it.
Far from it? Far from it? All right, yeah. Hey, tell us a little bit about yourself, Chris. I already let loose the Green Beret thing. Here's the way that I see it, man. One of the most humble people I've ever met. Really into the philanthropic world, trying to help out others. And we'll let you talk about that. And, an entrepreneur, born to be an entrepreneur. A graduate from Texas A&M University. Not to mention multi tours as a Green Beret for Uncle Sam. And man, that's a life well lived so far, man. A lot to go too, because you're still a relatively young man. So awesome, man. I'll let you kind of lead in there about who you are, and then we'll get going on this thing.
Yeah. So, I spent most of my time on active duty, 3rd Special Forces Group as Green Beret. I did 5 deployments on active duty. I did contracting work for a couple years afterwards. Did 2 deployments there, and then really from that point, my son was born in 2012, and I was actually supposed to be deployed at the time, and I was able to stay back for the birth. And then right after that, I was deployed again, and then about 2 months after I came back from that deployment, walked away from that life really forever.
Right.
And
so the transition began.
Yeah, which I was not really ready for, I guess, because I felt like I'd been a civilian for several years. The reality was, like, initially I still lived in the same house that I lived in.
Yeah.
Still deploying, still doing military things. I was around military people, still went to team parties with my old teammates, still deploying. So things like what changed was what I was wearing is really the big thing. So when I moved back to Texas is really when that I felt that transition in a number of ways.
What did that feel like?
Initially, I think it was good. I think, and that's not too uncommon. I think a lot of folks, when they first get out, it's this like sense of freedom. There's this honeymoon phase, and then
yeah.
I would say for most people between 1 and 3 years, if they have a challenge transitioning, it occurs within that time frame.
It does. I'll tell you, like with me, when I finished doing military work and I finished doing some government work and went and I kind of, had been in that institutionalized mindset for a long time, right? And when I very first decided, hey, you can do this on your own, right? The bug caught me, right? I saw other people around me doing well. I come from an entrepreneurial family, and I'm like, I'm going to do something on my own. This is the new next challenge. Long story short, I found myself and where my wife and myself and my children were living, and I had gone off in that direction. I was sitting down in a chair, looking out this sliding glass window with not a clue, right? Not a clue. And fast forward to things have been really good for us. That took, I may have sat there for a month before I figured out I was sitting there, looking out the window going, what's the next step? right? How do you actually do this? So how long for the honeymoon period before you hit that, oh wow, wait a second, I don't know what I don't know.
Probably 6 months,
Yeah.
give or take. But I mean, I think deep down, I knew what I wanted to do, but there are a lot of things that made that more complex. So deep down, entrepreneurship was like, I mean, it's a part of who I am. It was what I wanted to do. It was what I was pursuing. But it was, I mean, there's already challenges enough with building a business, starting a business. And then you throw in transitioning out of the military and everything else, and, you know, moving to a new place where you have no connections or anything.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of other things that were thrown on top of it, to include just self-care. I had done no self-care, you know, in 7 deployments, being gone all the time for overseas or for training.
Yeah.
There were just a whole lot of things that I was having to work through all at once, which made it really difficult.
Right.
And just figuring out how to navigate that.
Well, and you've talked about a few things so far. So you're talking about self-care, right? I don't think that really, for us, many times that are coming out of the line of work that you're in, actually presents itself, right? I mean, that's something that has to be learned. The other thing you talked about a second ago is that whole networking piece, right? Because now you're no longer a team, right? Yeah, you've got family, you have friends, but it's not the same, right? You're at this alone, you know. And I know that for me that was a tough one. How about you? How did that work out for you as you started looking around, going, wow?
Yeah, you know, it ended up working out for the best. Not having much of a network.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like it at the time. It was awful at the time, but I mean, it presented itself as a huge growth opportunity. Is ultimately what it ended up doing. But I look back now. If I look back over the past almost 10 years, 9 years, the people that I've connected with over that time, it's benefited me like immensely.
Did you have criteria for who you were connecting with?
No. And I'm not a networking type of guy. It's just not in my personality. Like, and I think maybe some people approach it in a way of like, I'm going to meet this person with the intention of getting this out of
kind of manipulative,
this,
right?
Yeah. You know, interaction.
Machiavellian route, yeah.
It's not how I approach it at all, which has been really good because I think it's developed a lot of genuine relationships. Yeah. I mean, I would not be in this room today, you know, I wouldn't be connected with you or anyone else at Fidelis.
Tim, Mark,
yeah. I mean, and it was, I mean, through us meeting at EBV, you know, like these were just natural.
And for the sake of the audience, EBV. So
entrepreneurship. Entrepreneur Boot Camp for Veterans.
That's right. And A&M runs that over there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so a lot of like the people that I've met, it's just happened organically, and these authentic relationships have occurred. And then over time, you know, like it's led into more things just naturally. And I think it takes longer to do it that way, but in the long run, I think it's more beneficial. But it just takes, for me anyways, like, you know, like it takes a little bit longer.
Well, it's not easy to do, no matter what the self-help folks on YouTube say, right?
Yeah.
It takes work to surround yourself with awesome people.
And absolutely.
Not waste your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about, but backing up a little bit, because I know there's had to be a mental change. I know there was for me, and I'm basing on that. I actually had to sit down and I had to reframe my attitude. I had to put a number of things down on paper that says this is the way you're going to behave now compared to how you were behaving. And I looked at that because there were people that were depending upon me to feed them, right? And and failure was, as we often say, absolutely not an option. So I would have to rethink the way that I went about it. So what about you? What about that idea of, hey, I've transitioned. This is on me. I've got to reset my goals, right? I've got to reframe my thinking, my behavior. How'd that work for you?
Yeah, you know, I heard someone say something actually at EBV that I think is pretty accurate, and I can't think of a better way of putting it. But one of the things that they mentioned was to pray, pivot, and then move forward. So there's like, I think about like my first experience entrepreneur wise. There's like half dozen pivots like early on, like, and I think that's just life in general,
Sure.
is that, if something's not working, you work on a solution, and sometimes you just may have to adjust things altogether,
Right.
and then change your plans a bit. But at the same time, like, I've just learned so much, and mindset, is one aspect that I've really adjusted over the years.
Which is strange because you would think as a Green Beret mindset
Sure.
wouldn't be a problem, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's different though, because in the military as a Green Beret, like the mindset is, you're not going to quit, you're not going to give up.
Right.
But I don't know, there's just certain things to where making adjustments, which could be seen as quitting or giving up, like
Right.
that's okay, and being able to accept that.
Right.
But you're still doing things right, being ethical and all that, and whatever you're doing. But there's just, I don't think there's a stopping point growth wise, whether that's mindset or how you do things, whatever it is,
Right.
there's always room to continue to grow.
Yeah, one of the things that I think we've shared is that, one of the cool things about the military is that there are hardened parameters. I know that situations dictate a lot of what goes on, and you have to be flexible and you have to be malleable, but winning is winning, right? And losing's losing. Whereas in business, to use that athletic metaphor, football really, it may be that you kick a field goal and you lose 10 points. It may be that you score a touchdown and you make 50, and the next time you score a touchdown, you may get one, right? And the field's shrinking and it's moving and it's flipping over on you as you go. And the world's changing fast enough to where if you don't have that ability to pivot and to figure out that truly what capitalism is finding a need for someone and fulfilling that need, right? It's a great service. But if you don't have that in mind, man, yeah, you've got to be flexible.
Yeah, the other thing with the military is that no matter what, for the most part, you're going to be taken care of. Like if you're sick and you just can't go into work, you're still getting paid.
Right.
Like if for whatever reason the mission gets canceled because of the target's not there or whatever it is, weather, aircraft. Sure. You're still getting paid and you're taken care of. Your family's taken care of. Where in business, like, that's it. Like if money's not coming in, like if you can't pay yourself, like those things happen.
Yeah.
And within the military, like all that stuff's taken care of for you, and you really don't have to worry about it. So there's a whole lot of other considerations.
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur.
Right. How do you handle the worry?
I try not to. I realize that there's so many things that are outside of my control.
Okay.
That I what I can focus on right now is the present moment, and really trying to stay there. Awesome. I try and, the analogy I was given is it's kind of like a rear view mirror. Is that, before, this is a mindset thing that I had to learn, I would spend too much time in the past about things that I can't change, or I'd spend too much time in the future worrying about things that haven't even happened yet. And just like in a car, when you're looking at a rearview mirror, like it's great to take a look at it every now and again. But if you're staring at that the whole time, if you're solely focused on the past or solely focused on the future, right, you're going to crash, as opposed to paying attention to what's going on at the moment. But so I try and stay in the present. And there's some things that I've learned the hard way that reduce the amount of worry. But ultimately, like, there's so many things that are outside of my control. I only focus on what I can control. And I don't know, I think there's just a optimistic mindset, being positive and really having a belief that things will work out. And if they don't, like, it's not the end yet.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and if they don't work out, then hopefully I'm going to learn something from it that's
Yeah.
going to make me better.
Yeah.
So
That's
I
a value.
try and let as much of worry go as I can. I mean, it's tough at times, but yeah, there's also, like I said, so many things that I've learned, mistakes that I've made.
Right.
That like one of them was I had no other sources of income and was trying to build something from the ground up and make it profitable and replace my income like as fast as possible. And that sucks.
That
like,
sucks.
It's really difficult.
It
and
is.
It puts tons of stress on yourself and the family
And the marriage.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
and then it's not fun anymore.
Right.
You know, like being
It's a
an
means to an end.
yeah, being an entrepreneur is no longer fun at that point. And had I not learned that lesson, I would have repeated that same
Right.
mistake again. But knowing that if I have other sources of income while things are like building
Mm-hmm.
until I can let those go, you know, then that keeps things like there's more work
right.
involved, right? But like it reduces a whole lot of the stress and keeps things fun.
And it's, you know, it's a hard thing, and I want to tell you why I believe it's a hard thing. People like yourself, me to a lesser extent, but yeah, people would probably put me in that category. I'll tell you that I'm either all in or not in.
Yeah, I feel that way a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's kind of a hard thing when you know that you're having to replace income. I'm going to be, you know, like you, I've watched you do it. You know, you're 100% all in. Well, how do I bifurcate myself where I have 5 different things going at the same time? And eventually you figure out, well, that's just what entrepreneurism is, right? It's not that I have to do 100% on this. I may have rich dad, poor dad, 5 different jobs going through, right? Or excuse me, businesses. And as that goes, I have to figure out how that all accumulates to my family being taken care of.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to be solely focused on
one,
thing.
which is what we're kind of doing right now.
Yeah.
That's where we're at, and one thing at a time.
Yeah,
right? One thing at a time. So, how'd you educate yourself about where you need to be? How did that go about? So, you know, we know that you got a good college education from a fine university, but as that goes, that doesn't always just translate straight into business, right? And being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So, partially going back to school for me was for fun.
Yeah.
Part of it was finishing something I started so long ago.
Mm-hmm.
Another part was connecting with great people. It's one of the most valuable things that I've gotten out of my education is, and I got asked this as a now being a former student, you know, when I was called from like the former student association or whatever,
right?
They asked, it was a current student who was asking me, you know, asking for advice. They're like, if you could tell me one thing that I should do as a student, what would that be? And I told this, the student, I said, hey, if I were you, I would try and connect and build relationships with as many of those professors as you can. Because that's where I've gotten the most value. There's not many classes where I just went in and did the work or whatever and left and never really had a conversation with that professor. Right. There's so many of them that I have a really good relationship with, whether it's because I was a teacher's assistant for them or just spending time office hours connecting with them. And there's just so much value in that, I think, and nothing may ever come of it other than like I can learn from them, you know, or it's just like good to know them as people, you know. But that is a huge thing that I got out of school. And then maybe lastly, like learning a few things, you know, which
failure, right? Failure, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, just the education piece of it is of value, and but going back to your original question, I think one of my strengths is being a lifelong learner. I love learning. Reading, whether it's podcasts, YouTube videos, like short articles, wherever the information's coming from, I really enjoy learning. And so throughout this process, transitioning from the military to present day, I've done tons of reading on what has worked for other people, whether military or not, read through all kinds of research. And then I've also applied that same skill towards business, you know, reading books on business, you know, connecting with people.
What are some books? Give the audience some ideas on what they need to read.
Yeah, so the two books that I've most recently read that I think are super valuable, whether you're starting a business, already in business, the book Traction and Profit First, I think are two super valuable books.
And I know you're grunting through a third right now that you just love, right?
Yeah.
Which one's that?
Yeah, accounting,
finance and accounting for non-financial managers. That's a every 6 month read, man. You got to do it.
Yeah, I'm slugging through that one. The others, like I burned right through them.
Oh no, that one by Harvard. It takes some time, but I tell you what, it's
But I think what those books teach, in a broad sense, is foundational things that you need to do.
Right.
Understanding, like, your niche, understanding what your mission is, your values, all like your long-term goals.
Right.
You know, because without these things, you can be aimless. Like, it's really easy to have mission creep. You start going off in a total, you're pivoting before you need to, you know, because something looks like a good idea.
Shiny object.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, these foundational things, both in banking and just with the business in general, are critical components that I would have learned the hard way on some of this stuff without.
Yeah, I think that value statement you made is a really big deal.
Which
right. Well, you know that as you start looking at these things, making sure your values align in the business.
Absolutely.
That is one of the things, you know, we mentioned the book Profit First, and people will have to read the book, but the idea is not profit only, right? The same way as being a Green Beret, the same thing is doing. If you don't feel alignment value-wise with what you're going to do, in the end, it's just not going to bear the fruit you want it to bear. And you know, it's been my going through a number of businesses and helping business owners, and many people say, well, you actually want to, you know, try to do a business of something you don't really care about that way. I'll tell you what, I have found that in business, if my values align, and my values usually go around people, if I can pour into people, my businesses do well.
Yeah.
Right. So the values have to align. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that works for someone else doing something they don't care about.
True.
You know, I think that would be pretty difficult for myself.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, anyways, you know, for us, like, it's important to be.
Well, it seems
care about it.
Yeah. There seems to be a pattern there, right? You know, and you'd mentioned the other day one of the values of your latest startup that you're going at now is that you want everything to be made in America.
Yeah. So there's a couple things that really, like, decided, okay, this is like a line in the sand that we're going to draw, which is made in the USA, organic and free of any other chemicals.
Yeah.
Whether that's synthetic fragrances or anything like that.
Right.
I mean, there's ways to do different scents from plant-based stuff where it's natural.
And
so those are
not to say that you know, we're running around as a bunch of hippies here, but tell everybody why you want to go that direction.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Made in the USA thing is just important to me. So much business is going outside of this country, and I would love to take care of our own, especially, like, I mean, us having served in the military, like, I mean, this is time that you have put in for this country, and you just only want it to continue to see it be better.
Right.
So I think this is one way of doing that, and honoring, you know, and it produces jobs for. I
like that honor. That's good. Yeah.
Americans. Yeah,
you watch as your business builds. You watch families get fed. That's an awesome feeling.
Yeah. And so that's important, and The organic, all-natural piece
Right.
really ties into a part of that self-care piece when I was transitioning out of the military. Again, like doing so much reading on what people have done, because I knew that things were not exactly right when I got out of the military,
Mm-hmm.
but
You mean physically?
all around.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Psychologically,
Yeah,
physically?
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I had just spent no time taking care of myself. Everything was mission first, team,
Mm-hmm.
and super high operational tempo. So we're constantly going, and that was fine. I think that
Right.
I wouldn't change that. That was the
Right.
way to do it. But I really didn't know how to take care of myself, and so a part of all of this reading and learning about just where it went wrong for guys,
Mm-hmm.
and making sure I didn't go down that path.
Right.
One of the things that I learned was that one of the leading causes of death in the special operations community is cancer. A lot of people don't know that, and where it comes from is really exposure. So environment, whether that's, there are some deployments where high fecal content was the water that we had to bathe in. That, like, it came from the river, that was our water source.
Right.
And people have talked about burn pits and just exposure to munitions, explosives.
Shoot
There's all
houses.
kinds of
Yeah.
heavy metals and all these
Right.
other things that ultimately can lead to stress on the body, which in turn can lead to cancer and all these other health issues. And so seeing this in specifically the special operations community, like I saw it firsthand happen to people I knew, others that I was acquainted with,
Mm-hmm.
that tons of health issues,
Right.
and largely due to exposure. And so for me, I knew that, like, this is one thing that I can't really change the past on, but I can change what I'm exposed to going forward. And that's where me and my wife, like, I thought it started with sunscreen, but I was actually wrong about this. And this was more than 10 years ago that it started with laundry detergent. We started making some of our own products that part of it was, hey, this is something that doesn't have all these harmful chemicals
Mm-hmm.
in it. And even like soap nowadays, like what people are calling soap, it's not even really soap. It's detergent, has all these man-made chemicals in it and everything else. And if I could change what I was putting on my body every single day and just overall be healthier, and this is just one aspect of many, that was a route that we started taking a while back, which has since led into, I want to be able to share this with other people. I would love for people to clean up an aspect of
Right.
their life, and what we're doing is a super easy way of doing it. Whether it's the soap that you use, changing that out with something that doesn't have these harmful chemicals in it, or whether it's beard oil or pomade, whatever it may be.
Right.
I would love to see more people do that. And I think that taking small steps like that lead to other bigger changes in your life, whether the next step from there is nutrition or exercise, or even if it's like reading a good book that's like developing your mindset or whatever it may be.
Finance and accounting for non-financial management.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some of those are a struggle, But I think as a whole, I just want to have a positive impact on people, and I think this is a way for people to experience that and take that into bigger things, whether it's those aspects or even getting more out of life, whether it's, hey, I'm healthier, so I'm going on this trip to the mountains and hiking, or going camping, or
Because just
spearfishing
because you're
or
out
whatever,
doesn't mean that the adventure stops, right?
Right, absolutely, yeah.
that skill set leads to a lot of other lot funner things you can do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. So, do you feel better now that you have started to pay attention and do the take care of Chris thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's been a total game changer. And it has taken me a long time to get good at it,
Right.
and there's still a lot more work to do. But I think what it comes down to is I viewed it from the perspective of this is being selfish. If I'm really taking care of myself and putting all this focus on myself, it's selfish. And it took somebody telling me that, helped me reframe it, that really it's honoring yourself. Is that if you're doing these things, you're honoring yourself, and that's not a bad thing. And the better you are, the more that you have to offer others, and you can be a better dad or a better, husband,
And
whatever
we
it
need
may
good dads,
be.
man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. My wife does the same thing. She never, you know, we all have hobbies, right? There's a lot of things that can take too much time away from the family as you do that. But I tell you what, I never hear anything. She's always very supportive. Let's put it that way. When I get up in the morning and head to the gym,
Yeah.
right? And she knows that we're better as a family than we are separated, right? So as that goes, the stronger we are, the better. So self-care is a big piece of that.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
getting out and exercising like that,
yeah.
I mean, it makes you a better human altogether, and you're more productive, everything.
Are you doing jujitsu?
No, I'm not. No.
Well, you know the first rule of jujitsu.
What's that?
Tell everybody you're doing jujitsu.
Yeah.
No, I just say that. It's really faddish, man. It seems like everybody right now. What are you doing for health? Jujitsu. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this new business, man.
Yeah.
Let's go there. So, what is it? What's the name of the business, and what are you doing?
Yeah. So the name of the business is KLENR.
Okay.
KLENR.
Yeah.
And our mission is to provide soaps and sundries that are free of harmful chemicals
Yeah.
that encourages people to live boldly. And so that goes back to what I was talking about with some of our values, making sure that it's organic, has no synthetic man-made stuff in it, even if that's to make it smell good. There's other ways of it still having a great scent, being all natural. And I want people to experience that. If they can transition over to it, be healthier,
Right.
and get out and do more, and do some of these awesome events that they've got on their plate. I think that's the step in getting out and doing that.
It's a pretty neat idea. So you have a guy from the soft community who's decided to come out with a line of soaps and body care products simply because the stuff we put on us is crap.
Yeah. A large majority of the stuff that's out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff out there that's even marketed as all natural, and they're still using fragrance oils, which, like I mentioned, I mean, it's man-made stuff. It's chemicals.
Right.
And there's so many things that are marketed as all natural that don't even really fit that bill.
Right.
And I would encourage people, even if you don't buy KLENR products, that's fine. But really take a look at what you're putting on your body and really see if is it essential oils or is it fragrance oils? Right. Is it actually all natural?
Yeah. And the thing that comes to mind is it's the right thing to do. Right?
Yeah.
But so tell me a little bit about what you think your competition is in this business.
I think probably, I wouldn't say it really competition. I'm not too worried about. I think the biggest challenge would be educating people.
Right.
I think people just have an assumption that if it's sold in the store and it comes in a nice box and everything,
then it's
probably good for you.
Right.
But the reality is the FDA doesn't closely regulate the soap industry at all. There's no requirement on how the ingredients need to be listed. Matter of fact, if you are using fragrance oils, these man-made chemicals, you don't even have to list what they are, because part of that is considered to be a trade secret, and so the FDA doesn't even require people to list out what they're using, as long as it deals with like how it smells.
Right.
Like you're not even required to list that out. With all of our products, every single ingredient that goes into them is entirely listed out, and you can Google them and learn more about them. And yeah, so yeah, so it's strange that you would think that like we would just assume that everything that you can buy from a store is not going to be harmful or is good for you, and it's not the case at all.
Right, and I think the argument's going to be, hey, it's more expensive than me buying this crap product over here that'll get me by, right? Isn't that going to be the argument?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's probably ways to, with anything, like
Sure.
you get what you pay for, you know. You can save money on like really cheap tires if you want. How many miles are you going to get out of them? Like what kind of road noise, like all these other things.
Are you going to trust them, as the old saying goes, with the life of your family?
Yeah, it's going to cost you in some way.
Right.
It's just,
what's your priority?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That whole, I think that there is quite a movement about being more disciplined about how we handle these things. What are you buying? When are you buying it? What do I put my money into? What do I not put my money into?
Yeah.
Right? And making those decisions and not just, for lack of a better term, just buying that big box, supermarket, generic, whatever it is to say that you have it.
Yeah.
Right? And to do the right thing. It's probably better to go without than it is to do the opposite. So,
oh yeah, for sure.
It's just it's a way of thinking, and it goes back to military background. Be a little disciplined in what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Think about what you're doing. Do it for a purpose. Have a purpose behind it. Make sure your values align. It's not really that difficult at the end if you put some thought to it, right?
Oh yeah.
That's kind of where it comes to. So tell us, what products? What is going to be by this time next year? How many products are you going to have that you're looking at?
Oh, next year, I expect us to have. We already have multiple SKUs of soap, so several different scents and makeups of bar soap. We'll have similar with beard oil, beard balm, pomade, potentially getting into body wash. But also not like, I think there's a plan for growth, but also in some ways like being strategic about it and not trying to super rush it.
Yeah. Because
I want to make sure that things are done right, that we're fulfilling our promise, that the products are good, and not rushing that. And that's something that I've learned in the past. Like I was actually telling Tim about this, that in another manufacturing business, there were 3 different items, which sounds really simple, but each one of those had several different variations. It ended up being like, I don't know, probably like close to 30 SKUs, and manufacturing like 30 different things that require all kinds of different measurements, like different components, resourcing all that. Starting out, it's a huge mess. Like it's a mistake, and because what happens is the ball's going to get dropped somewhere, and in the last place you want that to fall is on the end user. Right. So I think really taking our time with it, but long term, several years down the road, my goal would be to have 60,000 people impacted. And what I mean by that is that there's 60,000 people that are using KLENR products, and they have, which in turn is then allowing them to do more, whether being a better person some way, or do something in life that they weren't able to do before, getting inspired by, hey, I'm living a healthier, cleaner life, so I am going to go out and do this rock climbing thing out in the Joshua Tree National Forest, or I am going to take this trip wherever, and pursuing those kinds of things. Because ultimately, like, getting the most out of life is, I think these are components to do that. This is just one aspect that's going to help you to get the most out of life. It's an aspect of your wellness.
Right. So one of the questions I want to ask is, where is the start point, right? Because, when you're building a business, just your take on it, our group here has a little bit different of the take. So many people ask the question, does brand come first, right? And we, as you've probably heard over here a million times, say a business with no sign is a sign of no business, right? We say it over and over again, being a marketing firm. That's of course what we do. But in there, what is your idea? Where was your very first start point, and when did you start thinking about this KLENR brand and how that aligned with you and how you would let the world know that it existed?
So with the brand itself?
Yeah.
I was working with Fidelis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that where you've gone before? Is go to the brand first, or how did you begin with the other businesses?
Yeah, I guess that's not entirely true. So I tried some things on my own, just bootstrapping things.
Right.
And just trying to come up with my own ideas. Like, I know that, we've met several times, like actually over the years. Like, I think I've pitched you like some different ideas.
Hey, that's what we do, man. Shiny objects, man. Shiny objects.
Yeah. And, no, it really started out with me, bootstrapping it, trying some of my own ideas and going with brand wise what I thought would be best, and truly, like, there's things that I have strengths in and things that I don't. And like, I learned that, okay, there is a market for some of our products, right? But how the company looks branding wise, logo wise, all of those things, I needed some help with that.
The brand voice, the archetype.
Yeah, all of that.
Yeah.
And so that was really coming to Fidelis that really helped that. So, I mean, I can't say which way is the best way to go about it first, because there's part of me that's like, man, I put so much time and money into doing something, on my own, and I didn't have to scrap everything, but there's a lot of changes, but if I had not put that time into it, then I would have never gotten connected with Fidelis, and then seen like the opportunity to do things better and make some of the changes that. Well,
yeah, I don't think that time was lost at all. I think that one of the things is, many people think as an entrepreneur you're going to start a business and somehow money's going to come in, and for some reason everybody wants to grind coffee, right? They want to roast coffee, but as it really goes is you have to know what you're talking about. You have to really dig in and know every piece about what you are about to sell, because if you're faking it, they're going to know it. Right. And anybody can do that piece, right? Anybody can go ahead and buy it from China, throw it up on Amazon and make a couple dollars, but that's not where impact comes. And no, I applaud you for that time that you were a chemist in your garage, as we put it around here, right? Figuring out how all that, because now you speak and you're articulate about it and you're knowledgeable, and people can count you as, an expert on how this has been done.
Yeah.
And that goes a long way in the trust ratio, right? And that's always needed.
It's not wasted time.
Yeah.
Ideally, it would have been starting from the very beginning, with all of the branding and everything that we have now.
And done it together at the same time. But yeah, no, it's awesome. As we go forward, you got this business. It's running itself through. I want to talk a little bit about the value alignment, and then, we're running a little bit short here, but what about that philanthropic world that you're still in right now and doing things? Well, how does that play in with this full court press as you build another business, right? How does that work?
Yeah, so I've been involved in the nonprofit world for the last 9 years, specifically the veterans nonprofit world.
Right.
And that's been through a couple different veteran service organizations. And really, one of the ones that I was working with, I asked to go down to part-time so I could finish school. And I'm really thankful that they allowed that. And that short period before school started, I had all of this extra time. And I was like, okay, I want to start another business. And because I was like, I got to fill that time with,
Yeah.
something that I want
Right.
to do. Like, this is like what I'm passionate about and what I love doing. So, which I'm thankful that that small window opened, because then it got me started and got me going. But which has since led on to a continuation of other part-time work with another veterans organization, which we do, KLENR does actively support. We'll be doing some of their third-party logistics for them, and I've been helping them out with some community-based building.
Yeah.
But it is a balance that there's that aspect that I need to take care of and want to take care of. It's something that I feel super passionate about. I've been, it's been a really good experience, the people that I've gotten to work with, not only other employees, but people that have benefited from the organization. And getting to see the impact and being able to play a small little role on that is just a great experience and just really fulfilling. And so it's just having to balance that. And luckily, like, my schedule's super flexible, which really lends to being able to get a lot of things going with KLENR. And but it's just one of those things that you have to balance. And I've come to realize that maybe, I always think that like the talents and skills that I have, everyone else has those too. But it's one of those things that I've come to realize that I think now that may be an actual like gift that I've been given to be able to balance so many things, because there's been times where it has been supporting the nonprofit world, starting a business, doing school. I was volunteering for another veterans nonprofit. I was doing some contract work. I still do some contract work for another company every now and again. And probably some other things mixed in with still like, I still have to do these things like that, exercising and things like that, taking care of myself, and then being there for my family, mixing all that stuff in. Like, maybe that's just not a thing that everybody can do.
It's not. It's so funny when somebody asked me the other day, actually asked my oldest, asked him, said, what does your dad do? No clue.
Yeah.
Could not even articulate, and that's because we don't just do one thing.
Yeah.
Right. And you and I had a conversation the other day. We didn't know how the older generation was able to pour so much into their community and still run a business full time. Right.
Yeah.
How did that work out? And we came up with a lot of different ideas. But at the end of the day, that's kind of what we do. Right. It's giving a lot, and the work that we do is actually feeding what we do to give. And it's kind of it's a cycle in there, but man, there's a lot to do. So how is your son going to answer? What does your dad do? How's he going to answer that question? Yeah,
that's a good question. I'm going to ask him that later on today.
Yeah, around
he's
here.
10, so we'll see what he says. But if I in the past had struggled answering it myself, I'm not sure how he will. But I think really, I don't know if you remember telling me this, but maybe about a year ago, you summed it up pretty well, is that you told me that like you should describe yourself as an entrepreneur and philanthropist. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a pretty good summary of it.
That's right. And then, there's the follow-on question, because like, what does that mean? And that's, now you're the world's most interesting man, right? How do you have to answer? That's up to you. But it's a very hard thing to do in a world where most people live in a cubicle from 8 to 5.
Yeah.
They haven't traveled. They haven't really struggled. They have no scars other than the fact that it's really hard on the commute. And so to choose this lifestyle isn't easy, right? And but I tell you what, it's fulfilling, isn't it?
Yeah. I would say that I'm going to steal this from someone else. That's also, I think, like a really valuable thing, is that as you go along, these things that really work, like steal those things. Yeah. And I heard someone say this, is that there's there are certain things that are hard, it's hard being out of shape and unhealthy. It's also hard to go to the gym. It's hard to exercise. It's hard to eat right. But then the consequences, it's also really hard being
Really hard.
unhealthy. So like you choose which hard that you want. And also I think it's part of its mindset too, is like how you think about it. If this was something that I really did not enjoy or did not want to do,
Right.
I think this would be a whole lot harder.
Sure. Sure.
But these are all things that I care about, and I have fun doing them.
Right.
Which then it makes it, I guess,
Which
less hard.
Right. Which makes the long hours.
What
and
would be
everything else.
really hard for me, super hard, is this path of sitting in that cubicle like you're talking about, and I'm being told exactly what to do. I have no freedom on choosing this path of how I want to do it. That would be my worst nightmare.
Right.
A life like that,
Right.
where I have tons of freedom, but like when they say with tons of freedom comes tons of responsibility. That is true, but I would much take the huge freedom and huge responsibility versus not being able to use my brain and doing something that I don't care about.
Right.
Every single day. I would hate my life.
Right.
To me, that is what is super hard. And for some people, it's totally fine for them to be able to, sit in an office and just jam away at a computer at whatever it is, like selling insurance or whatever that may be.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's just not how I am.
Right.
And for them, doing what I'm doing would be horrific.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's different for everybody, but what's hard for me is different for someone else.
Well, it takes leadership, it takes guts, it takes discipline, right? And it takes forethought, and of where you're going and what you're doing and what purpose you're doing it for. Anything less than that is, like you said, a lack of freedom. Yeah.
Yeah, and a part of it, like having a belief that things are going to work out.
Optimism, for sure.
Yeah, and for me, part of that comes from making all these mistakes along the way, and knowing that I'm surrounded by the right people, and I have all the help and support, that I need, and I think. Yeah, having that mindset
Right.
is really helpful, and I don't have to worry about too much else.
And the other big part of that is and you're good at this, and everybody that we bring into our fold's good at this, is that forget it and just drive on, because there's going to be days. There's going to be days.
Sure.
When they're not great days, right? There's going to be days when you're doing quarterlies and you're looking in there and you didn't meet the profit goal that you thought you were going to make. And there's going to be days in which, there's HR problems, and as you build that, you have some great folks that decide to do other things because they want to be free too. And yeah, it's tough, but hey man, I just applaud you in the building of KLENR, right? And where that's going, because I know it's going to be awesome. It's going to be good.
Yeah. And it's going to be fun along the way.
It is going to be fun.
And because if it ever stops being fun, whatever it is, like, then you have to ask yourself, why are you doing it?
Why are you doing this?
Yeah. So.
Well, cool. Hey, thanks for your time.
Yeah,
This
appreciate
is awesome.
it, man.
And can't wait to put it out to the world so they can get to meet you.
Yeah,
All
be
right.
good.
Cool, man.
Thanks.
Thanks, bye.
Hey, it was 3 hours.
How long was it?